Welcome to season 2 of We Two, Real Life Stories with Real Life Couples. I am your real life host, Dr. Jessica Tartaro. In this episode, you're going to meet Kate and Rico. Kate and Rico have been together 8 years, married 6. They lived apart from each other for most of that time. As you'll hear in the interview, they moved in together last fall. They both have 2 grown children from previous marriages and found each other in a beautiful and unexpected way late in life. One thing that many of you who will watch this probably know is that Kate and Rico both are public figures. They are leaders in political and civic spheres in countless ways and have made the world a better place for their long-term service, each of them. And they were willing to take off those personas in this conversation to show us who they are in their private and relational life, which is so brave and such a gift. There's certainly people who know how to have fun, but there are also people who work at their relationship. They happen to be brilliant, extremely gifted and intelligent people, and they too struggle at relationship. And they're willing to tell us about it in the next hour that you will hear. Something I really underscore across all these interviews, but I especially want to highlight here, is that here's these 2 people who in many ways are looked up to as public figures, and they don't have all the answers in their private lives. And their challenges are real too, and they too are on the journey. And they're very committed to that journey, as you will hear. So I hope you, like me, can appreciate the gift of this interview, Kate and Rico, episode 1, season 2 of We Two. And here we are.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Kate. Hi, Rico.
Hello.
Hello. I already said this, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you for making the time, taking the time to sit with me for this program. You are the first couple that I'm interviewing for this second season. Here we are, almost summer in Washington, which is exciting. We really don't know each other that well. We don't really know each other. So I like to start the interview just to give a tiny little context, real-time context. We did overlap a little bit in this area. Kate, specifically, you and I lived in the Port Townsend area, overlapped with some of the time that I lived here. You lived here a lot longer. I watched you with admiration as our Jefferson County Commissioner for some time. You have returned the compliment to me saying you've appreciated my work, which means a lot. And I wrote you after you posted an anniversary post, a beautiful love note about you and Rico. And I said, I know you don't really know me. We did an exercise class together years ago, but can I interview you? And you graciously said yes. And then about 2 weeks ago, we got on an intro call. And Rico, you said to me, essentially, what are we doing? So that was news to you. But since then, of course, you have filled out the intro application. And here we are to spend an hour together, just getting to kind of swim in the space that is the love and partnership between the 2 of you. I'd love to start with just a simple question. How are you each feeling coming into this conversation?
Nervous?
Is that normal? I feel a little bit nervous too.
Yes, 100%. I'd be lying if I said I don't, which is weird. I'm not the one in the hot seat. Any sense of why you feel nervous or what the nerves are about? Any sense at all of maybe you're a little surprised, I don't know, but what's your sense?
Getting naked emotionally in front of an unknown number of people that will be watching this at some future point in time?
I mean, that could be the reason.
I can't think of any other.
I can't.
Well, I think for me, it was interesting. You sent a little questionnaire, like kind of get to know us questionnaire. And and it actually, in trying to fill that out together, we had some conflict and it brought some stuff up. So, just aware that when you get vulnerable, hard stuff comes up. So that's why I'm feeling a little nervous.
Totally makes sense. It's just true. When you get vulnerable, when you're willing to open the door, it is possible that stuff that is provocative or hard will arise. Yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Well, how about this? Would you be willing to join me in a breath or three just on purpose to land? Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Two more just like that. You know, one of the things that had me so grateful that you said yes is because I know both of you are in the limelight or the spotlight in professional ways. But it's so different to be uh, visible in a vulnerable way, in a personal way, in a behind the scenes sort of way. Uh, So, one thing I'll say, I think you know this, but we're just going to traverse at a pace that kind of follows your ability as a couple and then your ability as individuals to kind of stay here, stay present. There's no rush, there's nowhere to go, there's no like bottom line or punchline or whatever. So, let's tread in all the ways that we should tread with love, which is with care. Yeah.
Great.
Sounds good.
Okay. So there's two main areas that we talked about that we'll cover today, and I want to start with the one that's about what helps in this relationship. Kind of helps you to not just ride the ups and downs, but makes it worthwhile to be here. I'll share in the intro more about your history that you shared with me in the application, but I know you've been together 8 years, and these past 9 months, recently, so 9 months ago, you moved in together, which is huge. 7.5 years of your relationship, you were long distance, which is amazing. And then now, wow, this whole new chapter has dawned. I'm assuming, right? Like living together. Wow, that's a huge dive for a couple. So I'm curious, just over time, but especially maybe even this past 9 months, what are the sweet, both, practices, but also strengths of this relationship that have you two keep saying yes and doing the work? Would you be willing to share?
So I'm going to apologize straight out the gate. I have a fixation on pop culture references. Just watched the movie Eternity uh, while on the plane coming back from being gone for a week,
Mm.
and was reflecting, thinking about this interview, but then just about like our time together the last 8 years. And just, you know, I think that we have seen a lot of change in that 8 year period, a lot of transition for each of us individually and both of us together and both of our families. Um, and I think that for me, being able to be, Kate having been a witness for me and support for me has been pretty critical in my world. And that, of course, includes my diagnosis with lymphoma cancer, um, which it was 4 years ago now, I think. Um, but just all that we've been through in that as well.
Let's see. Well, I think, Jessica, one of the reasons or one of the things that resonated with you when you read that anniversary post that you referenced was karaoke. That we like doing karaoke together, which is more a metaphor for I think
It's also true.
yes, it is true. But just that, like, we both value finding joy in a relationship. And, we were in our 40s when we met and had been in previous marriages. And, you know, ideally you learn a thing or two. And of course, you also carry some baggage with you from those. But one of the things that I certainly learned, and just more years of living, is that the importance of joy and of sharing that with a partner. And so I think we're pretty good about finding things to plug into that bring us joy, and they're actually fairly different. Like we're very different people in some ways, but like music and dancing and karaoke, those are things that we can tap into. We're not a big karaoke couple, don't get me wrong. But just finding ways to be silly and joyful together. And I know it's what first attracted me to you, Rico, is that you were really fun. And it's just easy in midlife to not have a lot of fun. And we were both raising, at that point, kind of middle schoolers. And yeah, just easy to get kind of bogged down in the responsibilities of work and parenting. And I didn't even want to be in a relationship when we met, because it felt like there just wasn't room for it. But the like ability to have joy in a relationship, like that makes it all feel worth it to me.
Totally. I'm delighted by the complementarity of your answers. I hear you say, Rico, she has supported me through times when I absolutely most needed support. There have been some monumental transitions that you've gone through, and you named just right out of the gate your cancer diagnosis 4 years into your relationship. And she showed up and continues to show up. And I hear you saying, Kate, he offers me joy. He brings joy. It was the first thing that drew you to him. I love that you said, like, not only was I not looking for a relationship didn't even make sense to me. Like raising my middle schoolers and, juggling the immensity of my work and so on. But here was this person who in middle life was still able to bring joy and show, like, all the things, right? Spontaneity and creativity and levity, which isn't to say there's nothing to be heavy about. It is to say, I will find that freedom through what is heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And you offer that, Rico, I hear. And then I'm hearing and guessing. I mean, karaoke, I love how you're like, karaoke is a metaphor. Is it a metaphor?
I mean, it could be. We specialize in duets. So, yes. Which we will not be demonstrating.
Okay. I wouldn't. But did she just out you? I see you grimace.
No, it's funny. No, I also actually really do love karaoke. I mean, on my phone I have a list of 50 karaoke songs and 2 playlists on Spotify. So like, yes, it's a thing.
But it also represents, I think, that like not taking ourselves too seriously and moving into midlife and just being more comfortable with ourselves and our quirkiness and celebrating that and not being nearly as self-conscious as, I won't speak for you, but as I was earlier in my life. And so it does actually represent a number of things to me.
I love it. Yes. I love, well, that you have in common that you both have 2 children and they're about the same age, I think, young adult children now. Talk about solidarity and the relentlessness of that, in that you were single parents when you met each other. So you also, I imagine, get that play is survival. a certain level, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
My husband and I were talking today about like sometimes it hurts in such a way that like the laughter is the saving grace to kind of keep your fingers on the cliff of just like and we're raising a much younger person, uh, but it's so sweet to just to hear that was an initial spark, the joy together, and has been a through line. It's a pretty impressive playlist and song list that you have. I must say, 50 songs. I mean, I won't follow the thread. It happens to be a thing that I enjoy as well, but I'll save that for a different conversation. How did you two meet? I don't usually do a retrospective, but would you be willing to share just a little bit of your origin story?
Um, do you want me to go
Sure.
first? Uh, so we have a mutual friend in common, someone who's been a friend of mine for 30 years now, I think, or close to that. Um, and someone that Kate came to know through her world of food. Um, uh, she lived in Portland at the time, was coming into town, said that she wanted to have just 3 or 4 people meet her for dinner, suggested to me that, oh, I know this great woman, you'll love her. I was in a relationship at the time, so I wasn't looking for anyone. Uh, she knows me very well, so she did not have the same perspective on my longevity in that relationship as I might have had at the time. Came to the dinner. It was right around the same time as Rinny's birthday. That's Kate's daughter. Um, so Kate missed her ferry. It was in Seattle. Kate missed her ferry. And so came an hour later. We were just hanging out in a bar. So it was very informal. And when she came in, and I'm not saying this for sake of the camera, it's actually what happened. Like whatever conversation I was having at that time stopped for me, and my view focused entirely on Kate, and then uh, lost the next 2 hours of us just like jabbering back and forth about like super nerdy things like land use and civic engagement and like our the ways in which we like exist in our worlds of like engaging people and trying to be a helpful part of the solution in air quotes, but then like went on to like have dinner, go out dancing, stay out talking till 4 in the morning. uh and I mean, I think we had a similar experience. I thought that this was the last time I was going to see this person, um, but we managed to be able to reconnect, and there's more to the story. But that's a start. You can fill in what I.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a good play by play. Yeah, I think it was interesting because I had very strong feelings after that night, and we kind of tried to stay in touch professionally because he was in a relationship, and we were like, hey, should we try to like do some research together, publish together, and it just became obvious that that was not sufficient, and that he needed to leave his relationship well,
which I did
respectfully
pretty hastily.
Yeah, but before anything happened between us that would have, challenged our integrity. So, yeah, it was. I think I used the words. It was like a freight train. The feelings that I had towards him, which I don't think I'd ever really had before. Like I'm a very practical, rational person. And I've always heard about that. And I thought, oh, that's like silly girls that, are overly emotional or something. And then I found myself just completely irrational in crushing on him. And it was a nice treat at 40 something to have that happen and be like, oh, that's what romance is about. And that's what all those books and love songs are about,
My goodness. I like how you said, Rico, I'm not just saying this for the camera. And yet, it's like a cinematic moment. You couldn't see anything.
It would make a good make a good piece.
It would. It does. It's powerful. I mean, clearly, sort of inconvenient in a sense. You weren't technically available, and Kate, it sort of ran counter to all your filters.
Yeah.
How you encounter people. One thing you two put in the application that is just so loud is your purpose drivenness in common. And you also said high standards, which is very clear about both of you, but high standards for both self and self-awareness as well as service or contribution. So I hear that there was this sort of instantaneous, like kapow. And then there was the floodgates opening around the topics that you both, I love how you said geek out or nerd out about it, but that you both have a really deep experience in and passion for. And that lined up with all of the other pieces of chemistry and whatever it is that has us go, you.
Yeah, no, that's very perceptive. And it did kind of unfold that way. I mean, there was an immediate attraction to one another. And then we discovered this shared way of seeing the world. On that first night, like we were talking about the criminal justice system and the built environment and how that contributes to human behavior and, all these nerdy things that we happen to both have devoted our lives to. And then as the relationship deepened, like, I don't know if this was me being cynical, but I just assume like, the more you get to know someone, the more likely you are to find some flaws that you're like, that might be a deal breaker. Like, I'm not sure that's going to line up, especially in midlife where, your tolerance for things might not be as high because you have a comfortable life. And why would you want to take on any additional challenges to that? And so it was amazing to see that, like, our ideas about monogamy were really similar, or there was just like sensibilities, or about like committing to personal growth within a relationship. That made it into our marriage vows. Just that, like, I refuse to be in a relationship where personal growth is not a given. That has to be something that we both commit to. And so just at every turn, like, I would expect to be disappointed by Rico, and he would show up in like this very authentic way that just totally worked for me.
It also showed up in a special Bitmoji query to me from you that I have saved to this day, which was essentially you committing to me
by having a shared Bitmoji. It's very official.
I should find it.
What is it? I mean, can you describe it? What is a Bitmoji, like an expression? Yes.
No. It's little cartoons of ourselves that because so much of our relationship, particularly early on, was long distance.
Yes.
We had a pretty well invested text relationship.
I understand.
And that included like cartoons of each other that we would send to each other.
But then you could join they're like avatars. You could join them together to have a shared one. And it became like a challenge to find the most appropriate, ones that represented us really well. So it's we're sounding very like
nerd.
or just trite, but this stuff matters when you can't live together. And
This stuff does matters. Now you're really going to show me.
It's going to be hard to see.
Yeah, but pause it. Yeah, I see you.
Yeah,
It sealed the
it's
deal.
too hard to see, but
I got it. I mean, you were just playing until the bit emoji joined, and then it was on.
Right.
I would. I want to read it, but I won't.
Oh, well, I get, a robust text part of your relationship or dimension makes sense, but especially people who are critical thinkers and consumers of the world. You called it nerdy, but I would certainly call it people who are paying attention to the world as it is and wishing to make it the world that it could be. There's a great book called Possibilists. It's just a kind of a mouthful. But anyway, you strike me, both of you, as that. Visionaries, is another way of putting it. So, of course, in the written word, you would have, alchemy.
Well, and Kate is a gifted writer.
Sweet. I do not think of myself that way, but thank you.
A lot of other people do.
Yes.
I mean, I actually really enjoy writing too, but you have a gift.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, we really are on kind of the gifts of this relationship. I recently did an interview where we went straight, my husband and I did an interview, and the focus was really on how we manage conflict. And it was like, it was so hard to talk about really as like our focal point.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly very defining, but it's not representative. It's not in a fair way. One of the things you two said to me in our warm-up interview, we were wrapping up and I kind of said, is there anything else? And Kate, you said, can we talk about sex? And I was like, yes.
And I was more like curious if that ever comes up more like that I wanted to talk about it, but I'm fine talking about it.
Well, I would say it like this. Sex can be all the things for a couple. It can certainly be play and recreation. It can be the place where the mending happens. It can be the place where fantasy or, sort of trying on limits of the relationship become possible. It can be pushing the limits, just sheer pleasure and joy. It can be all the things. And sort of inviting a couple that is pro-sex, is I think what you actually just said, we're pro-sex, to say, and here's what sex is for us, is so, I think, important for couples for whom sex either feels sometimes out of reach, or what I often see is we can't talk about it. It's hard to talk about. And you said, can we talk about it? So I invite that, if it's alive, for you to share also, how is it for you two as sexual creatures in this relationship?
It is good.
It is good.
Do you want to expand on that?
So I mean, this is normal, right? Earlier in the relationship, we had a lot of sex. We have less sex now than earlier on. And we were also very creative in some of our locations where we had sex. But like I still feel like we are very good at it. And both enjoy it. And I think that there has been some growth there too. I know that for me, I've always been self-conscious around my desire, and so trying to loosen up around that and be more comfortable, I think has been one of my areas of slow growth in our relationship. And one that like we have talked about. I mean, you have, I hope it's not an inappropriate word, but that you have challenged me on this, and rightfully so.
Yeah, it's early on, yeah, sex was a really big part of our relationship. Like we had a really strong attraction and connection that way. And I'd say the purpose it continues to serve for me at least is just a really easy pathway to connection. That it's a way that we can pretty instantly connect. It's hasn't been a source of conflict or resentment or sadness, as I know it sometimes can be. And so that's a real gift to be able to access that readily. And then, to have seen just the change over time, because, in this same 8 years, Rico's gone through very intensive cancer treatment. I've gone through menopause. Like, bodies have changed a lot, and it's really great to see that like that has endured, that the ability to access that sweet spot together has endured some really hard things that could have derailed it or made it, I mean, whether physically not pleasurable or fraught emotionally, like that hasn't been the case. And yeah, I feel really, really blessed that we can continue to connect that way so easily.
Yeah, and I mean, I will admit that I am a little bit of a romantic and a little bit cheesy. So I also like this morning, like cuddling in bed where Kate has her head on my shoulder and falls asleep, and I or like we hold hands in bed at night. And I really love that.
Oh,
I'm embarrassed. Yeah.
beautiful. Well, it's beautiful. It's the simplest of things, though. I mean, we can think of it as, oh, we're talking about sex, and somehow that's got to be titillating. But it's actually, like you said, the tiniest of moments, but the dearest of moments. And also, what I hear is we've somehow been able to, I don't know if you use the word protect, but sustain our sex life through so many, not just emotional challenges, but physical and physiologic challenges, which really could undermine our ability to find each other as sexual creatures. So it's delightful for me to hear just the dimensions, the sweetness and the gratitude and the vulnerability, and a little bit in there of challenge and growth too, which parallels all the other parts of your relationship. Meeting each other as very, very dynamic, full, passionate, opinionated, informed, educated, people, catalytic humans. So it's no surprise that there would be great fire for you in the bedroom as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one thing, like I feel so grateful to have found such a meaningful relationship later in life. But it does leave me wondering, like, do we have to go through all the hard stuff and some of the damage that has been wrought in previous relationships, or being hard on ourselves? Like certainly the self-consciousness that probably all people, but certainly all women feel in their bodies. And like, it's such a relief to be past a lot of that, and to be able to like accept more things about my partner than I was able to before, because it's, just with age comes some, who knows if it's wisdom or experiences you've learned from perspective. Yeah. And, but it's interesting to think like, does there have to be a lot of carnage to get to this place? Or, and having young adult kids, of course, you see them struggle, and it's like, oh, I think that's the only way through it is through it, and to get to the other side of it. But you don't wish that on anyone, of course.
Yeah, I don't think there's another way though. I mean, I also have been listening. I said cheesy. I've also been listening to graduate uh, speeches, commencement speeches, and I just listened to one on Arthur from Arthur Brooks, who said, when I listened to it last night, that yes, that in order to have happiness, there must also be damage. Like you just have to, that is a critical part for the right brain, right side of your brain.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's a very provocative question, one that doesn't have an easy answer or an answer, but it's worth underscoring the question is all the carnage necessary? And carnage is, I mean, the right word. Like impossible to summarize, but what an adult by middle age, most of us, has gone through to be comfortable in our bodies, or relatively comfortable in our bodies, be able to ask for what we want, be able to kind of like what you said, Rico, appreciate what is so good, really land in something and say, this has value. There's a friend who has a spiritual kind of outlook on this. They have studied with other spiritual teachers, and I borrow often this phrase, which is something about our opportunity is to do just a little bit better than the previous generation. I think about that because I don't have an easy answer either to, or an answer, is the carnage necessary? I certainly wish it could be buffered a little bit more for a lot of us. But I like the idea that what we go through lessens what our children will go through. And that gives me solace. You're both parents, but maybe I'll just toss the question back to you, and then this hour is going by way too fast. I have too many questions left. But Howard, does either of you have any other answer to that question as you've landed through more than enough of your own trials?
Well, I mean, like part of it is you have to put yourself out there. You have to take risks. You have to try things you haven't tried before. You're inherently going to get some of that stuff wrong. And like as a society, whereas there is emphasis and kudos placed on like professional success and academic success, there is not the same, well, and shoring people up. You go to school for these things, you get degrees and continuing education, but like not like there's a stigma, in fact, around mental and emotional health education or support. And I think for that reason, therefore, we all suffer more. And until societally we begin to change that, like I think the carnage is just an unfortunate byproduct.
Yeah. And, with time, I think you look back and it feels like just life experiences that you learned from and even become grateful for. But there's often a lot of pain before you get to that point. And yeah, I don't know if it's necessary or not. Some people seem to skate by with relatively less of it. Maybe it doesn't feel that way to them. Maybe everybody feels like they just have to go through it.
Oh man, let me just say, I could riff with you for a minute on this. Gosh, what was that? Let me say this. Not to overblow this, but I think this interview specifically is part of counterbalancing the stigma around what you said, Rico, mental health, just as something that really should be centered, that needs resources and care and attention. Oh, what if we have out loud conversations as high functioning adults about what's hard and good about our relationships? Maybe we create a passageway so that all of us can have these conversations and resources can get to the people who need it and so on, because we're not so stuck behind the stigma, because adults that we respect a lot are getting out loud about this. So maybe others of us can too. Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that makes
Like,
sense.
yes, like here and now, let us, offer the humble offering that this risk that we all are choosing to take on this Sunday afternoon can create, a small vibration of change in the right direction. Yes. Less
Mhm.
carnage, more love.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
Throw in a little prayer midway. Okay. Well, so I'm going to say this. Talking about conflict, doing this, all right, gear shift, is something that everyone is in my field, in mental health, or in folks who are kind of in the coaching world and doing, very active education on this. This is what we're talking about. Community conflict, certainly interpersonal conflict, and certainly conflict between intimate partners. And there's this essential need for us to get better, refine our capacities as the modern adults. And I thought what you wrote, Kate, in the application was one of the braver things I've heard yet, which was, and I'm just going to quote you, I think we're pretty bad at resolving, you said, escalated conflict. Uh, but I think we're pretty bad at it. I thought, man, that was so honest.
And we did write that together. Like we
Right.
did come to agreement on
Yeah.
the language. So
Yeah.
We did.
yeah. Yeah, we do much better. Like not in conflict. We work well together. As soon as the conflict hits, like it's over.
It's over.
Escalated conflict, not
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's say this because we're not going to get into some of the specifics, and I think that's just fine, just given the time we have left. But first of all, just again, okay, like who can't relate to that? Like me too. Who's good at escalated conflict? It's not. It's by design something we're not good at because no one's good because the wrong part of our brain is dominating. Or we should say nervous system, but. So, I'm happy to hear what you feel comfortable as a couple sharing, just in terms of what you're learning about how to kind of slowly, bring the better parts of yourselves to this place where, yeah, a different part of us takes over. Of course it does. I'm open to wherever you want to take that as a couple.
Well, I mean, I'll just jump in to start somewhere. So my father's from Puerto Rico, so I have like Hispanic blood coursing through my veins. And I used to be terrible at conflict, and very quick to anger. And I know that there's still a piece of that that always will reside within me. But, I've probably spent 30 years of counseling just trying to become a better person. Um, I think there is a different part of your brain that takes over, right? And I think that bringing that back down, or as a counterbalance for me in my head, the fear of damage overriding the arrogance of my anger plays a role, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I also hear you saying 30 years of counseling.
And that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not small. An inheritance, if you will, a cultural inheritance, but also a heck of a lot of work so that I stand a chance to balance that out.
Yes.
Yes,
And
thank you.
that has been a very conscious investment, like what you just said. So I stand a chance of actually
That's right.
being able to have a successful long-term relationship.
That's right. That's right. Because we know that can very much stand in the way of any relationship feeling safe enough. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for starting.
Yeah, and I think my take on it. So my previous marriage was a volatile one, but I mean in a way that where like we weren't bad at conflict. Like we had a kind of agreed upon way of fighting, and it wasn't pleasant, but at least there was like we were both bought into that dynamic of volatility. And I say this with like having taken all the Gottman workshops, and like, you know, we're like diagnosed a volatile couple, but it, you know, it's recognized as a system that can work. But my takeaway from that was that I never wanted to be in a volatile relationship again. And so I have like retreated to the other end of the spectrum where I become really avoidant when conflict comes up now. And so that's where I feel like we're bad at it, is because, you know, Rico gets defensive or angry, and I pull away, and that drives him crazy. You know, he just wants to come on harder and harder and harder because he's trying to engage. And I'm like, no way, I am out. Like, I don't feel safe. I need to remove myself. And so it's interesting that like it hasn't served me well to like decide not to fight anymore. So, you know, and I certainly have, you know, there's very annoying qualities and outcomes from that. You know, I get like hyper rational and or logical, and that like isn't super helpful in that environment. Or, you know, just choose to leave, and that can be hurtful. And so, you know, it's I like to blame Rico's anger, but I know that I also am contributing to this cycle that isn't really productive. But I just feel a need to kind of protect myself, and conflict is scary.
Totally. Yeah, conflict is scary. Well, let me ask you this. You put in the notes I took from your application is you eventually get to the place where you talk it out, but you're not sure what has to happen to sort of facilitate that. You're not sure just sort of how to be more intentional about unwinding this kind of pursue retreat dynamic that is, you know, adds to the volatility. And of course, all of these adaptive patterns have their intent to adapt us, but they don't usually work when it comes to our intimate partners, right? They work in the jungle, or, you know, the battlefield. But they don't work with these tender hearts. I'm curious if there's anything that you say, well, when we do this, it de-escalates us faster, or at least we find each other again with our nervous systems more regulated if we do this. Any thoughts about what you're learning there?
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Like, it always baffles me because eventually, like, Rico comes around and says like the thing that I needed to hear. And I hope that that's not just that you're like beaten down, and so you feel like you have to say that thing. And I mean, I don't even necessarily have an attachment to what it is, but like you do come around, and then you're very open to like problem solving together, or like it's hard because you so have it within you to like collaboratively like work through conflict. But I have no idea what gets you from like on the ceiling mad to that place of like, oh my God, he's the most insightful man I've ever met. And I'm so grateful that we can, you know, be working together to like identify what scares us and try to come up with some better ways of doing things. And like, it just baffles me that I don't know where the switch is thrown, or like the more I try to say like, let's self-regulate, then like that drives you nuts. You just get more mad. Like, so I don't know what works. Something does. And I'm super grateful when it does. There's often a lot of damage done though, before we get to that point. And like, if it's something I'm doing, I would love to know because I will do more of it. But, or if it's like you have to rage a certain amount and then you can like come back to a more centered place, but like something clicks and then we're great. But a lot it's really hard up until that point.
Admittedly, that often will happen, that span within the same hour.
Yeah.
Which that didn't used to be the case for me. It could be a day or a week, or I don't know. My mother has always said that, like, I always say no before I mean, from a very, very early age, my initial response always has to be no, which I take no pride in that. I'm not suggesting that. But getting from no to yes and shortening that span of time has been part of my work. And I think also just trying to, it sounds maybe stupid to say, but remember to be less prideful. I mean, I think that, like, whether it's us or whether it's like other people out in the world that I have to deal with professionally or community engagement or whatever it is, like it is pride and hurt feelings that get in the way of listening. And so I am very aware of that. And even though I still can get caught in that trap myself very quickly, I think that because I am aware of it, there's some ability or coping mechanism that I have to pull myself out of that spiral. And I mean, I wish that I mean, like, as someone that teaches, because I teach students, like, getting from intuitive to conscious ability, like, that's always the goal. And I haven't been able to quite get there with this yet. I'm still working on it. I'm sorry.
Well, and I mean, my default is to be critical, which
also
is a huge trigger
crazy
for you. Yeah. So it's like, I know I'm very much part of that cycle. So I don't want to just put the blame on your anger. It's like anywhere in that system, we could throw a wrench in the cog and stop it. And but it's so hard to do. It seems to have to play itself out. So,
well, and we're both stubborn.
Yes.
Well, you're both ferocious.
Thank you, I think.
Very high compliment. I mean that in just this, it is an awesome way of just the potency or the strength or, just the you-ness that is you. You met at a moment when you'd cultivated yourselves. I certainly hear that in so many ways, this relationship brings out your best. And then when you get triggered, it does the opposite, which is normal or common. I guess I'll say common. I really appreciate you saying, we're working on it. We are not sure. And, Rico, I really appreciate how you were able to distill going from intuitive to conscious. How do I drop the breadcrumbs so that I could follow that trail again on purpose rather than just, okay, that time it worked out eventually, and that time it worked out eventually, but we're not sure how we got there. I hear that you are bringing attention to this. I hear that you have brought a lifetime already of resources to each of your mechanisms of protection. I hear that you're on it, and you're probably going to be on it for a while longer.
Yes.
And I can't imagine, honestly, a better note to end on. I think if we see a couple that's like, oh, they have it all together, they use this perfect program to go through conflict, and they both just sort of sip their tea and talk, you know what I mean? People are like, there's no way I could touch that.
Right.
But how many people, could say, if they're being honest, it's so rare to be as honest as you've been, but we are still figuring it out. We're really smart people who have really smart people to advise us and support us, and we're still figuring it out. That feels like a great gift. We spoke earlier about destigmatizing. That feels like a great gift for all the millions of ways that couples are wrestling through conflict. Is there any note that you would like to end on? Is there anything that you would like to say as a closing? It could certainly be about anything we've talked about or an appreciation for each other. Or anything that you want to say so that this feels complete enough for now.
If you have something, you go ahead.
Um, so when my plane landed at whatever it was, 10:30 last night, I sent a text to Kate, a very long text, which I don't normally do, which was essentially, I love you, I don't tell you that enough. I think I know that sometimes I drive you crazy and that may cause you to leave me, and I hope that it doesn't. I am still working and I really appreciate like all that you have done with me and for me. And I feel like I'm a better person because of this relationship. And I believe all of that, like that I carry that with me actually on a daily basis. Um, but I think that the thing that is the biggest gift for me in this relationship is conscious intent in terms of investment, and that conscious intent and investment being a weekly and daily engagement, which is not how I came into relationship before. And I actually think that having a long distance relationship for as long as I did was a part of creating that intentionality too. So I have been, I was scared about us moving in together for a long time. But I feel like we have still managed to, I mean, it's different now, but like we've still managed to hold on and still cultivate a level of intentionality. And I think, I absolutely think nothing else that is the most important. I really do. I think that is the most important thing. I mean, maybe I realize you can't just boil it down to one thing, but it is one that I have carried with me the last 8 years.
Yeah, I would agree. And, this is why it was in the wedding vows that self-reflection and the desire to continue to know ourselves was non-negotiable, because that stagnation of growth to me is the death of a relationship.
Yeah.
And, it probably stirs the pot more than, choosing to be unconscious might. But I think that always comes home to roost. And sorry for the mixed metaphors. But yeah, no, I just so appreciate, and, just stereotypically, probably there's fewer men in the world who are committed to that than women. And yeah, it's just so nice to be met in a relationship fully, and have a partner who is as committed to that as I am. And I think that's really what makes this work. You are cheesy.
And so inspiring. That's it. You said it in different ways, but just on purposeness, which isn't perfection, and it isn't having answers, and it is in progress, work in progress, love in progress, all of that. There's so much mercy that floods my body, like softness, like compassion. When I just sit with you both, I just have to say, like being with you for an hour, I feel more forgiveness for my own temper, to be honest. Just the places where I lose it and then feel so much shame and then lose it some more, And I just feel this like gratitude for two people I admire to say, it's hard. And I say, oh, wow, I'm not the only one. So just thank you so much for letting me and the people who watch this witness that and embodying that, just showing us that. And if it's call it cheesy, bring on the cheese. Yeah. I would say yes. Thank
Agreed.
you so much for your time. I'm going to close here.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.